What's up, dude? Mentzer method: why training less builds more muscle by Fast Fit.
In 1979, Mike Mentzer won the Mr. Universe title with a perfect score. And what made it controversial wasn't his physique, it was how he built it. While his competitors were grinding through 2-a-day workouts 6 days a week, Mentzer was training just 2 or 3 times a week for about 30 to 45 minutes per session. He called his approach heavy duty, and it sparked a debate that's still raging in fitness circles today.
Okay, so from what I know about Mike Mentzer, which he sort of explained pretty much everything I know, is like the low volume, right? But I think one of the big reasons why Mike Mentzer had so much success was because the people he was competing against, not only back then was there just a huge like knowledge gap in what we know about fitness now compared to back then, but also Mike Mentzer, I guarantee you that his training method was way more sustainable, and he was able to be way more consistent than everybody else around him because it's less work, right? Like, just like the guy said, he's going 2 to 3 times a week. He's just doing like sets to failure and not that many sets. Like, it's more intensity over volume, right? Which gives him more time to recover, less time in the gym. It's less taxing mentally.
Does training more actually build more muscle? Is more better? Or is there a point of diminishing returns where extra volume just digs you deeper into a recovery hole? Mentzer believed intensity was everything. Push to absolute failure, send the growth signal, then get out and recover. 45 years later, the research has caught up, and it turns out Mentzer was right about some things, but not everything.
Who would have thought? Like, why can't we just look at this and be like, yeah, Mike Mentzer had some stuff right, and he had some stuff wrong, just like everybody currently. In 40 years from now, people are going to look back at, like, Chris Bumstead and be like, yeah, his workouts were really good, but he could have done a few things better. And we just don't know yet, you know? You just gotta wait.
Today I'll break down what the science actually shows about intensity versus volume, why this matters especially for men over 40, and how to apply these principles without all the dogma. Mentzer's philosophy came from a simple observation. You don't build muscle while you're lifting, you build muscle while you're recovering. Training is the stimulus, it sends the signal to the body to trigger the adaptive response. But the actual repair and growth happens during rest, when you're sleeping, eating, and letting the body do its work.
Yeah, that's what I'm really interested in, is like, what is his recovery protocol like? Like, did Mike Mentzer actually take recovery seriously, or was he just not in the gym that much? So he was like was he doing like LeBron type recovery where he's in like cryo chambers and shit? Probably not, but like, I'm just curious.
Train again before that repair process is complete. You're just accumulating damage without allowing for adaptation. Mentzer watched his competitors train for hours every day and saw them plateau, get injured, and burn out. Meanwhile, he was getting stronger with a fraction of the workout.
Literally what I just said.
Most people massively overtrain. They'd get better results doing less as long as that less was brutally intense. That wasn't just gym bro philosophy, there's real physiology behind it. When you
see, here is the biggest issue with like the Mike Mentzer training is that while it works, a lot of people that go to the gym, like, this is the problem with like gym bro culture, right? Is that the average person that goes to the gym and isn't that like passionate about lifting, they're going to think that they're doing like a Mike Mentzer method whenever they say like, oh yeah, dude, I just show up like 2 to 3 times a week. I just do a couple sets, you know, straight to failure, and I'm gonna get jacked off of that. But then you look at them actually work out and you're like, yo, your sets aren't even close to failure because you don't know what failure is. You haven't gone to failure often enough to even know what that feels like.
Muscle to genuine failure, the point where you literally cannot complete another rep in good form, you've recruited the maximum number of muscle fibers possible. You've sent the loudest possible signal for adaptation. Additional sets after that don't send a louder signal, they just dig deeper into your recovery resources.
Yeah, just like whenever you do a set and you get to a certain point that's close to failure, like let's say 1 rep away from failure is optimal, just completely hypothetical, 1 rep away from failure is optimal, then going to failure would be suboptimal because you'd just be doing more damage for less benefit, right? They're just pointing it out when it turns into sets, because if you're on like your 3rd set and you're already like fucking gassed and you have to drop like 50% of your weight just to do the set, then yeah, it's probably a wasted set.
Mentzer's metaphor was a light switch. You only need to flip it once to turn on the light. Flipping it 10 more times doesn't make the room brighter. It's a compelling idea, and for certain populations, especially older trainees with limited recovery capacity, there's real wisdom in it. Let's give credit where credit is due. Mentzer was ahead of his time on several points. First, intensity matters more than most people think. Research by Dr. Brad Schoenfeld and others has confirmed that training close to failure is one of the most important variables for muscle growth.
I agree with him, but I don't agree that most people think that intensity isn't that important. That's like one of the first things you would know if you go to the gym. Like, I feel like the top 3 things you'd know is that you have to have good form, you have to recover, and you have to push yourself hard during sets. That's like the 3 one-on-one things, right? I guess instead of saying do good form, just like avoid getting injured would be like a more broad term for that.
That ends several reps short of failure produce significantly less hypertrophy than sets taken to or near failure. If you're going to do less volume to save your time in your joints, you'd better make sure that what you do is genuinely hard. Second, recovery is chronically undervalued. Most recreational lifters don't recover as well as they think. They're sleeping just 6 hours per night, running on stress and caffeine, and wondering why they're not progressing despite working so hard. Well, Mentzer understood that training is only as good as your ability to recover from it. More is not better if you can't adapt to it.
And that is like straight facts, is that a lot of, it's pretty obvious. Whenever you go to the gym, you see a lot of people who are like cracked up on energy drinks and pre-workout, and then they get shit sleep because they go to the gym at like 8 p.m. and then try and go to bed like 3 hours later, and then they don't get good sleep, or they just don't get good sleep, and then they are constantly wondering why they're plateaued for like 3 months.
Third, older trainees have different needs. This is where Mentzer's philosophy becomes especially relevant for men over 40. Recovery capacity does decline with age. Research shows that older adults take longer to repair muscle damage and restore performance after intense training. Satellite cells, the cells largely responsible for muscle repair, become less responsive. What a 25-year-old can recover from in 48 hours might take a 50-year-old 72 to 96 hours. This doesn't mean older adults can't build muscle. They absolutely can, often at surprisingly similar rates to younger trainees. But it does mean the training frequency that works for a college athlete might be counterproductive for someone with a few more decades on them. Mentzer's emphasis on quality over quantity, intensity over volume, and adequate recovery time between sessions aligns well with what older trainees actually need. Now here's where the debate gets interesting. Critics of low-volume training point to research showing a dose-response relationship between training volume and muscle growth. Studies by Brad Schoenfeld and others suggest that more sets generally produce more hypertrophy, at least up to a point. And they're not wrong when you're lifting weights. And that's what those studies don't account for, the inherent inefficiency of barbells and dumbbells. Think about what happens during a typical repetition of a bench press as an example. You unrack the weight, you're holding it. Then you decrease your force production so the weight can descend, so you can let gravity do its thing. Then you press it up, working hard through your weak point near your chest. Then it gets easier as you continue up into mechanical advantage, finally sort of coasting to your strong point with a bit of momentum to help as you lock it out at the top. Now, this is important.
Okay.
What percentage of that rep involved your muscles working at their maximum capacity? The answer is 0. If there were any moments of maximum effort, well, we call that a 1 rep max.
That
you can only do 1.
Okay, yeah. I get what he's saying, right? But it depends on what rep you are in the set. Because if I'm doing a set of bench for 10 reps, and by the 9th rep, I can only do 1 more rep will bring me to failure, then that is a 1 rep max in that moment.
So that's not what we use for the workouts. The truth is your muscles were working with some fraction of their maximum capacity the whole time. The rest was momentum, gravity, and mechanical leverage advantage. So when researchers find that you need 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week to optimize growth with traditional...
Okay, I see what he's pointing out, right? Because like the 10 to 20 sets range has been out there for so long now, and it's a weird thing. I guess I could see people where they get in this mindset where they just think more sets, more muscle up to a point. Like everybody knows you can't do like 50 sets of legs in one session and like that will be productive. No, I don't think anybody thinks like that. But I do think there is a small amount of people that are just putting in like shit sets and thinking it's going to get them somewhere. You know, the guys that like they do curls for like, they do like 10 curls, and once they get a little tired, they just put it down. I don't know what this movement is.
They compared our 20-minute isokinetic protocol to traditional resistance training. Traditional training, longer sessions, more sets, standard equipment. Isokinetic training.
Okay, hold on.
Traditional training.
So
longer sessions, more sets, standard equipment. Isokinetic training, 20 minutes, twice per week, controlled speed, constant tension, maximum effort. The results were not close. The isokinetic group about double the 1 rep max and 5 rep max strength increases.
Well, that makes sense because so you're doing 20 minutes a day.
The result.
Okay, here's my theory on this. He's literally explaining, or he's showing why it would be better. It's not because that it's like fucking isokinetic. I don't even understand that. Hold on. Isokinetic exercise is a specialized form of train machines that maintain a constant speed regardless of force applied, providing variable accommodation resistance through the entire range of motion. Okay. So confused what he's trying to point out here. 20 minutes. It's a shorter session, which means if you were going to the gym and you only had 30 minutes to work out, whenever you're working out at the gym at that time, like let's say you have to go to work, you have to get home, do whatever, right? You're going to like make the most of that time. If you only have 30 minutes, 40 minutes in the gym, you're going to be doing less sets, but you're going to make those sets like pretty damn hard if you're not lazy, right? So he's shortening the session, obviously, twice per week. We all know that doing 2 to 3 times a week per muscle group is better, but I don't even know. He's saying twice per week. I'm assuming that just means that they're doing 2 workouts per week, and maybe it's full body. Maybe it's like, this is too vague for me. Constant tension. Because I'm ignorant to what isokinetic training is. If you're doing a set of dumbbell bench and before you reach the very top, you just stop and you go right back down. You don't, let's say you don't even stop. You start going right back down with it. So that would mean you're doing controlled speed, constant tension, and then if you're just doing an intense set, it would be at maximum effort. You do that twice per week for 20 minutes. That's the same training, right? Right?
The results were not close. The isokinetic group about double the 1 rep max and 5 rep max strength increases seen in the weightlifting group. They lost significantly more body fat. They gained significantly more muscle. They even improved cardiovascular fitness more than 3 times as much. And crucially, they only trained for 6 hours over the course of the 12-week study, compared with 21 hours for the weightlifting group. Better results in a fraction of the time. Now, is one study definitive? No. We'd like to see more research comparing isokinetic protocols to traditional volume match training. That research largely doesn't exist yet. The exercise science world is still catching up to this technology. But the physics and biomechanics make sense. If you eliminate the underloaded, inefficient portions of every repetition, you should need less total volume to deliver the same stimulus.
This sounds a lot like the theory that was bouncing around where they were like, what if you had a machine where every time, like, it would just know how strong you were from the moment you got on it, right? So your first rep would be a 1 rep max. Then your second rep, it would lower the weight perfectly to your 1 rep max in that moment. So then you'd be doing another 1 rep max, and then you do another, and it would essentially it would be like the perfect machine, because it would, if it somehow always knew what your 1 rep max was, even during the set after expending energy, like that is what this sounds like. It's like sounding like, well, whenever you're going down on bench, it's actually not building as much muscle as whenever you're doing the concentric and you're pushing it up. So what if we just never went down on the bench? It's like, I don't know where we're going with this.
Doesn't matter, we're saying effective volume matters. And isokinetics deliver more effective volume per minute than traditional weights ever can. So how do you take what Mentzer got right while avoiding what he might have gotten wrong? Well, here's the framework. Prioritize intensity. However many sets you do, make sure they actually count. Training to failure or within 1 to 2 reps of failure ensures you're sending a strong adaptive signal. Half-hearted sets that end when it starts to feel uncomfortable are largely wasted effort. Respect recovery. More training is only better if you can recover from it. For men over 40, that often means training each muscle group hard once or twice per week, rather than trying to match the frequency of younger trainees. Pay attention to sleep, stress, and nutrition. These are not optional. They're where the actual adaptation happens. Find your minimum effective dose. There's a volume threshold below which you won't progress optimally. There's also a threshold above which additional volume just digs into recovery without adding any benefit. Your job is to find the minimum amount of training that produces the results that you want. For most people over 40, that's less than they think. Use appropriate tools. Mentzer was limited by the technology of his time. Barbells and dumbbells have some inherent limitations. They can't match your strength curve, and they require you to control momentum. Modern training tools like Isokinetic devices that provide constant, matched resistance through the full range of motion can deliver a more efficient stimulus with less joint stress. You can achieve genuine intensity in less time and with less wear and tear.
You still have to do some of those like free weight movements though. I don't know if he's like trying to push. It sounds like he's trying to push machines more, right? Which machines are great in one way, but I don't know what he is like throwing out with dumbbells and stuff, because he's saying like they're limited because he said that you had to control the motion, right? Hold on.
Technology of his time. Barbells and dumbbells have some inherent limitations. They can't match your strength curve, and they require you to control momentum.
So they can't match the strength curve. I'm assuming strength curve how? Does he mean whenever you're like actually, if you're curling, right? And your arm is all the way extended, then whenever it's all the way extended, that's like the most, like the stretch position in a bicep curl would be where the most tension is, and then whenever you curl it up, it would be at the least amount of tension. That makes sense, right? But that's not a fault of like dumbbells specifically. Like, I guess, you know, if you go on a cable machine and you're doing lateral raises with the cables, technically that's better than doing dumbbells, right? But then if you do bench press on the cables, that could also work well, but then you're not getting like the same, you're not stabilizing them, right? You're not using your whatever.
Modern training tools like isokinetic devices that provide constant, matched resistance through the full range of motion can deliver a more efficient stimulus with less joint stress. You can achieve genuine intensity in less time and with less wear and tear. Here's why this matters practically. Most guys over 40 do not have 2 hours a day to spend in the gym. They have careers, families, responsibilities that make traditional bodybuilding routines unrealistic.
That's facts, dude. Every time I see like gym routines, they're always so unsustainable in the mostly in the sense that they're so time consuming. Like, I don't have time to go to the gym 5-6 times a week and do, 20 sets each session. Like, that is ridiculous. And then on top of cardio, like, fuck that, dude. I'm not putting in that much time into the gym just so that, like, the health benefits are obviously there, but you don't need that much to get like all of the benefits, right?
They also don't need 2 hours a day. If intensity is sufficient and recovery is adequate, significant muscle can be built with surprisingly little time investment. That Western Colorado University study found that 20-minute sessions twice per week produce greater strength gains than longer
Shout out Colorado, by the way.
traditional training sessions. And it's not magic. It's just efficiency. When every rep is genuinely challenging, when you're training close to failure all of the time, when the resistance is appropriate for your strength at every point in the movement, you don't need endless volume. You need enough stimulus to trigger adaptation. Any more is counterproductive. Mentzer understood this intuitively. He just took it too far in some directions a little bit later in life and not far enough in others. The sweet spot for most men over 40 is somewhere in the middle. More intensity than average, less volume than traditional programs, and adequate recovery time in between sessions. Mentzer challenged the fitness orthodoxy of his time and paid a price for it. He was dismissed as a heretic by the high-volume establishment.
Here's what I don't get is he keeps talking about traditional programs. What the fuck is a traditional program? Every single program, every fitness program that you can find will be different in a significant way, at least one significant way, right? Whether that be, there will be different amount of sets, different, days that you're going, different exercises, different intensities. There's no like traditional weightlifting program. There's weightlifting tips, and even you are, like, this guy is even saying how a lot of the tips still do work. Like 10 to 20 sets is a good range for you, but let's say you're going to failure on every single set. Maybe you only need 8 sets per week. If you're going a little not so close to failure, maybe you need 16 or 20 sets. It's all a balance. And the thing is with fitness is that everybody thinks that they have the perfect balance, and they sort of push everything away so that they can show everybody else their program and say, this is how you do it. This is perfect right here,
Later, the research has vindicated some of his core insights. Intensity matters enormously.
All right, I'm gonna leave this one here. This was a very good video, though. I'm gonna leave him a like. My boy Fast and Fit, only 1,000 subscribers, but this was a fire video. I love this, and I love you. Okay. There you go. Send him some love. Yeah, that's about it. So thank you so much if you watched all the way through. I really do appreciate it. But other than that, I will see you later. Goodbye.